All right, today's topic, we are going to do graphing quadratic inequalities. You can 100% use your graphing calculator on these. It's really pretty simple. All you got to do is type it in and either shade it above the parabola or below the parabola. And let's just kind of review real quick. In Math 1, you graphed lines, and if it was greater than or less than, you made a dotted line. And if it was greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, it was a solid line. That still holds true with inequalities, and it'll basically look like this. So this first example, y is greater than or equal to negative x squared minus 6x plus 7. In class, we're going to graph it on the graphing calculator. I'm going to use Desmos just to speed up the process here. But also keep in mind, if a is negative, so if we have a negative a, so if a is negative, all right, then it's going to open downward. If a is positive, it's going to open upward. All right, so in our case, a is negative because that's a negative x squared. But also, I have greater than or equal to. So when I graph this, it's going to be a solid parabola, not dotted, okay? So what I'm going to do is basically just type this into Desmos, and then I'm going to go from there. So I've got negative x squared minus 6x plus 7, and I'm just going to quickly switch to it. And it should have been, if you go to Desmos and you look, you've got greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and it looked like we were greater than or equal to. So y is greater than or equal to negative x squared minus 6x plus 7. And there's your graph right there. All you'll have to do for me is locate the vertex, which in this case the vertex is at negative 3 and 16, and just find 2 points that the graph goes through. That's really all that I'm looking for. So my vertex is at negative 3 and 16, and it looks to me like it hits the x-axis at negative 7 and positive 1. All right, and everything is shaded above the parabola. That's another key word you'll see me say here in a minute as well. All right, so I'm going to go back, and I know it was at negative 3 and 16, so it's really going to be above, somewhere up here. It's going to be pretty high up here. It's going to be a solid line, and it's going to hit at negative 7. And it was also going to hit at positive 1. So it's going to be a parabola that looks like this. I know it's going up higher than that. Don't have enough room on my graph. And everything should have been shaded. If you see greater than or equal to, that greater than means above the parabola. So everything got shaded above the parabola. And that's literally all you have to write. And that's fine like that. Okay? And again, these are pretty simple. Next one, y less than x squared minus 3x plus 5. All right, so some key things. I see that a is positive. So if a is positive, it's going to open upward. I also see that this is less than. It doesn't have the line under it, so really it's going to be a dotted parabola. Less than means below. So everything should be shaded below the parabola. All right, so I'm going to type it into Desmos. Y is less than x squared minus 3x plus 5. I'm going to get rid of the old one. All right, so I got y less than x squared minus 3x plus 5. And there's my graph there. Notice how the parabola is dotted. And it looks to me like the vertex is at about 1.5 and 2.75. And all I really need are 2 good points that it goes through. I know it doesn't go through the x-axis. Its y-intercept is at 0 and 5. And there should be another point directly across from that. It looks to me like that is at over 3 and up 5. That point right about there, over 3 and up 5. So that's another coordinate. And all you have to do is graph it for me. That's it. All right. So if I go back to my graph, my vertex was over at about 1.5, over up 2.75, somewhere right in there. It looked like it hit it at 5, and it also hit it at over 3 and up 5. And it was a dotted parabola. So it should have looked like this. And everything was shaded. Less than means below, underneath it. So everything here would have been shaded. And again, if you did it on a graphing calculator, you get the same thing. Okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Again, these are all pretty basic. I see y is greater than x squared plus 2x minus 8. So the key things I'm looking at, greater than means I'm going to shade above the parabola. A is positive, so it's going to go in this direction, but also since it's greater than, it's going to be dotted, so it's actually going to look like this. And since it's greater than, I'm shading everything above the parabola. Well, above the parabola is actually inside of it. All right, so you'll see when we graph this here. All right, so I need to find some good points just so I can plot it. So y is greater than x squared plus 2x minus 8. And, all right, so y greater than x squared plus 2x minus 8. All right, so there it is. It's dotted. Why is it dotted? Because it was greater than. Where's the vertex? That's another key thing you ought to be able to find for me. That's at -1 and -9. And a couple good points that you could plot are -4 and 0 and 2 and 0. All right, so the graph just needs to look pretty close to what it should. It doesn't have to be perfect, all right? So -1 and -9, that's the vertex. That should be right there. -4 and 0, it went through that point, and it also went through 2 and 0, and we said it was dotted going upward. So it should have looked something like this. And it was shaded above it because it was greater than, so it actually got shaded above it, which is inside the parabola. Okay, greater than means above, less than means below. All right, let's do this one. I see this right there. That means it's going to be a solid parabola. I see that right there. That means it opens downward, so it's going to go like this. I'm shading everything less than that. All right, less than means below. So if it's below the parabola, remember the parabola keeps going outward. It's everything underneath it. All right, so let's see when we graph it if it looks something like that. So we got y less than or equal to -x squared minus 4x plus 16. Its y-intercept should be at 16, so it may not all fit on the graph. That's fine. All right, so again, graph it real quick. And if you're in class, we're going to do it on Desmos and your graphing calculator, so you'll get to see both views. Y is less than or equal to -x squared minus 4x plus 16. All right, so there it is. It's a solid all the way around. It's not dotted. It looks like its vertex is at -2 and 20, so it's probably going to be a little bit off the graph. That's fine. And it's some other good points that it hits. Looks at about 2.5 and -6.5, so I'm okay with that. And again, you just need like a rough estimate of this. Okay, so the vertex was all the way up at -2 and +20. So we're going to try and do the best we can with this graph. I know it's not going to fit. Okay. All right, so when we go to graph this one, I know it hits somewhere right about here at -6.5. I know it hit somewhere here at about -2.5, pretty close. It went solid all the way up here, and then it came back down. Should look something like that. It was shaded less than, that means below it, so it should have been shaded inside, okay? Now, if you check the homework folder, it's literally these problems right here. You can draw a graph to the best of your ability. Label the vertex though, and label, if it does, where it hits the x-axis. Remember, those are the roots, solutions, zeros, whatever you want to call it. And then just make sure it's shaded properly.